Welcome, Anthony, to the IoT For All Podcast. Thanks for being here this week.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Before we get into the topics, it'd be great if you could do a quick introduction about yourself and the company to our audience.
I'm Anthony Protopsaltis. I am principal at Velocity IoT. We're a fairly young company focused on communications, multi-IMSI, localized packet gateway infrastructure. For the past 3 years, we've done pretty well and have exceeded our goals in product releases and what we've done.
So let me ask you for like a big picture standpoint. I want to get into a number of topics today, but let's start with AI and how AI is really reshaping the expectations and requirements for kind of IoT infrastructure. Just kind of what you're seeing now, maybe what you've seen over the last few years, and kind of like, where it's going from there.
So we're utilizing AI in a bit of a different fashion. We're analyzing how the devices are connecting to the network, type of technology, carriers, infrastructure, kind of how the data is actually flowing. And we're looking at this to figure out, because we are a multi-IMSI solution, is it the right IMSI for your implementation? So based on your physical location, the carrier that you're going through, the location of your packet gateway, do you have the right connection? So right now we're gathering this data and kind of putting this platform together that will allow us to make sure that the devices that are deployed are on the best possible solution. We're looking at how customers are utilizing AI in their use cases, but for what we do, the focus is on the communication and how it travels. That's where we're utilizing AI to kind of look at all this data, because it's a lot of data. We have millions of devices deployed. Is it correct the way these devices are communicating?
I imagine as devices become more intelligent, there's a lot of things that need to be done for real time, kind of always on connectivity. Like the demand for that, right, is rising. It's just in order to keep that as something that is possible, things need to be improved, things need to change in certain spaces, kind of really creating this like resilient infrastructure. Can you talk about what that means? Like what does resilient infrastructure mean? What does that look like in context? What's at stake, if it's not doing that?
Resilient infrastructure, of course, you want your devices to communicate in all different situations. We take pride in the fact that autonomous implementation that is done, meaning that when we work with you, we'll plan out your deployment as much as possible, because it's 90% planning, 10% execution. The more we work with you on how you need to do things on the device side, as you said, there's a lot more that's done at the edge. When you do that, the SIM and the infrastructure handles the rest, but you have to account for how that is working. So what I mean by that is you have your device that's deployed in one region. You might think AT&T or some other carrier is the best there, right? So what you do is you design your device around the bands for AT&T. You do all this preparation, but at the end of the day, AT&T might not be the best one out there, right? It might be someone else in that physical location. So what do you need to do? You need to kind of generalize the implementation process, meaning say, okay, I'm designing this for all the carriers, and I need to make sure I have access to all the bands. It doesn't work all the time if you're a battery powered device, because then you have a lot of scanning time. So we work with you to kind of plan out the deployment infrastructure. So when you do that, there is some intelligence and some items that are factored in on the device side. But then with the deployment and proper planning, you can have a very smooth, autonomous selection of network where it doesn't utilize a lot of battery. It finds the right network that it needs to be on, and then it can. And then the benefit that we have is also, if, as I said, with the AI tools and some of the other things that we do, we review how the devices are communicating on a regular basis. And we use AI right now for suggestion of, should this be on a different carrier? Should this be on a different IMSI? Do we OTA and UIMSI to the into the device, right? That's out in the field, and make sure that we have the best possible connection. Because at the end of the day, we're a connectivity company. If we're not billing connectivity, right, we're not making money. And it benefits us both to make sure that the customers have the right implementation to do that. So right now, it's primarily done autonomously and we review and kind of point it in the right direction, eventually this will be an AI process where it says, okay, let's make that change.
That's a very cool breakdown. Now, I wonder if you could expand a little bit and give us maybe a real world example of kind of how the AI driven tools for connectivity that you all are building and have built and deployed, how that's really helping a specific company. You don't have to name the company, but just maybe you could take us through a use case of how that's helped improve performance or it's helped improve troubleshooting in a real world deployment before and after working with an organization.
From a troubleshooting standpoint, as I said, we try and do a lot of planning beforehand. So the troubleshooting on deployment is very minimal. I feel like we have more calls before the deployment where we're aligning with the customer, we're going over certain aspects and how the technology is working. So we reduce any type of support calls in the future. So specifically, we have a very large camera company that utilizes that go in all different types of places for security, visibility for wildlife, etc. Right? You never know where this product is going. It's always going to end up potentially. It could be in the mountains, on a farm somewhere. The carrier and the network that you need to be on is completely unknown until you arrive there. Right. And do that deployment. At that point, there's IMSIs that are already assigned to that product and they're already on there and the product itself will actually rotate through those MZs up until it finds the right place that it needs to be so it can connect to a network. What happens is once that network connection has been established, what we do after a certain amount of time, because this is a stationary product and we kind of need to know if it's stationary or if it's mobile, uh, how it's connecting in, right? And is that based upon other devices that we have potentially in that area? We do comparisons to see, okay, how is this working? Is this on the right IMSI? Is it going through the right packet gateway, right? That's localized for the Americas or for Europe or for wherever it might be deployed, right? Because we have that infrastructure. Does it match what we see with other product there? So we look at that, and if it's, let's say it managed to get itself on an MZ for Asia Pacific, but it's in the United States, that's a red flag. We get a notification. And what we'll do is right now we're again training the AI to make sure that it sees everything's aligned. And then we manually switch it over or move it to the right MZ.
I will say through conversations that I've had over the years, as the connectivity space continues to expand and grow, the different menu of options that's out there, sometimes to some people, the network and the connectivity piece can be a bit complex. So I guess a question for you is with all different connectivity out there, different, we have 5G, we have non-terrestrial networks, multi-MZ, you have EUICC, we have all these different terminologies, we have different connectivity options, all this stuff. How do you suggest or what advice do you have for companies out there to help them maybe cut through the noise to make the right call on what they actually need for not only now, but also the potential expansion of a deployment?
Yeah, no, great question. It's tough. There is a lot of noise out there. I mean, when you look at all the feeds now, and you got SPG 32, NTN, and again, we support all that, right? We do. And the 32 is a pretty interesting question, right? Do I need to go there? The problem is right now, as far as I see with SGP 32, is each SIM provider has their own their own infrastructure for it. Right. So what happens is we work with three different SIM providers, right? Like SIM manufacturers. We don't manufacture our own. Even some of the SIM manufacturers don't manufacture their own SIM. Funny enough, we work with three of the largest SIM manufacturers out there, and they all have the different infrastructures to support SGP.32. So if you buy it from one, they might have access to certain carriers that they've done integrations with, but the delivery system is still, it's theirs. And unless they tie it in and certify it with the carriers, you don't have access to those profiles until they do that. So it creates a difficulty where we alleviate that by we have our profile, right? So we could put our profile on these different providers. If you want to have a profile from a native carrier, for example, someone like Vodafone in Turkey or someone in Brazil, because you know that you need that. And we offer that as well in the multi-IMSI solution. But if you need it or you want it as a separate, or you have your agreement already, we can work with you in order to identify if we can bring that agreement over onto our SIMs, right, that we offer, and which carrier partner or which SIM provider we need to do in order to work with that carrier partner. So it is a lot of noise. It's not as simple as, oh, I can just bring my contract because I'm buying an SGP32 SIM. So that creates a bit of difficult. NTN is also another one. Very interesting. We offer it. We're partnered with Skylo in this use case as well. I know they're one of the biggest offering it, but we're also working with other satellite companies as well that have integrations. With the multi-IMSI profile, we can actually offer it already. We can push it out directly on IMSIs that already or SIMs that already exist in circulation. So if the device, for example, has a capability, we can OTA it out to their device. The biggest issue I see with NTN, it's taking a while for everyone to adopt. It's very expensive. We are pretty competitive from a pricing standpoint with everyone out there, but it's still pretty expensive for a half a megabyte or a megabyte or two.
Yeah, it's always interesting to kind of talk through just the different use cases on when you recommend, or, you talked about SGP to 32, you talked about multi-IMSIM, IMSI, you talked about, satellite. So I think that's always a question for people out there just trying to figure out, well, which path do I need to go on? And how do I even figure that out? Right. But I think there's a lot of things that can also come into play early in the process that can help with that decision and help reduce the likelihood of any potential key failure points post deployment or any of those kind of surprises that pop up. So maybe if you could talk to why is pre-deployment testing so critical? Why is it maybe oftentimes overlooked? And as it's just a step in the connectivity planning process, and just kind of maybe hit on anything there that's kind of important for your perspective.
Our best experience with customers is when they invest the time in the pre-deployment planning. We work with you guys in order to kind of define what you need, right? From a connectivity standpoint, if it's non-terrestrial, and okay, when is it? When do you need that level of communication? You might be, if you're a meter and you're only passing a small amount of data, that's great. But we've had customers ask us, "Oh, can we do video? Can we share video?" The answer is no, right? At the end of the day, it's not enough bandwidth. It's packetized data. So I think the largest you can do right now, 1 KB. The more we work with our customers to kind of define what they need from a communication standpoint on the use case, we look at how they're deploying the product, what their communication profile looks like, because that's a big thing, right? When they have to send out certain types of information. Do they have sky visibility? Right? NTN still needs, clear view of sky. Obstruction, even trees, right, have difficulty, right? I was at U-blox for 10 years as the director of sales, and it's amazing how what people wanted to track and where they wanted to track these things. And it was very tough explaining to them that, GPS requires line of sight. And it's the same thing with NTN. You need that line of sight. So depending on what you're going to do, how you're going to implement it, um, that's a major factor. And then also transitioning from NTN to cellular, because we're working with a few customers right now that are doing multiple types of implementation where it's a container tracking solution where when they go overseas, they need to switch to satellite, and then when they're on land, go back to cellular, right? And how do you determine this? How do you do this without using a large power footprint, right? Because you don't want to keep pinging cellular when you're at sea, right? So how do you determine that? And depending on how you use it, you might use GPS location in order to kind of shut down one and go to the other. There's different ways of doing these things. So we work with our customers on these different profiles. We do, sessions where we talk about the communication profile, what it needs to look like, how often they need to send messages, what messages are really important. So that way we can define which technologies might fit into that. It's definitely something that the planning And going through those sessions is very key in order to having it successful.
And I imagine not every company goes through the thoroughness of the planning process as you all do, which I think is an important thing for companies out there evaluating partners to work with. But beyond that, what other elements are important for teams to kind of look for in a connectivity partner when it comes to the not just the planning, but the testing, support, long-term reliability? Like what matters? What's at the top of that list that people should make sure they're thinking about?
I look at all of our customers as partners, right? Their success is our success. You want someone who's investing in your time as well. When we deal with the customers and we're looking at their needs, we're trying to understand their business. I do have a VC background, right? I come from venture capital. I've built up other companies as well. It's important that when you start working with someone, they're invested in it as much as you are. Communication channels need to be open. We always try and get our customers to let us in as much as you can, right? Consider us an extension of your company, and the more that they do that, the better of an experience they have. So it's important that whoever they're communicating with, whether it's us or another partner, that they have that ability to consider them as part of an extension of their team. I think it's really important to be able to have that communication.
Kind of heard that from other companies and other that play different roles within the industry is not just the fact that the ecosystem as a whole viewing it as a partnership, but any company you're working with, like you said, their success is your success and vice versa. So it's very important to have that kind of perspective going into the relationship. Now, I know you all work with both startups and enterprises. So tell me a little bit about how you're helping companies across different sizes really ensure that they're meeting their goals and objectives when they come to you. Then they have access to these advanced global connectivity networks without really getting locked into any type of rigid system or contracts, kind of the stuff that people are always hesitant and worried about when it comes to getting into the connectivity side of things.
We have two platforms. One, our enterprise platform, which is for large global scale deployments, where it's millions of devices. And then we have, which is built on top of that, and another thing which we call our Flex platform. And that we've been working with DigiKey for the past 3 years, distributing SIMs, getting them out there, extremely low cost. And the Flex platform is no contracts. You go on, you buy your SIM, it shows up the next day. You plug it into your device, you enter in your APN, you set your data centric setup. Really straightforward and easy. I mean, the next day you can be online. And then, of course, from a support, if you have any support questions, our team responds fairly quickly. Between the guides that we have online and everything else, it's pretty easy for people to get set up.
I did have a question I thought was interesting just to kind of get your perspective, given your vast kind of extensive experience in this space. When you deal with customers, has there been a kind of, I guess, one expectation maybe that has risen to the top that teams kind of bring to the table when they engage with you, and then once they actually deploy, maybe that changes with reality a little bit? Is anything along those lines?
Oh, I need to think on this. You got
Sorry, I was just thinking about given your experience, and there might be some like interesting kind of consistent people come and say, "Hey, yeah, we need to make sure this happens, or we're expecting this," and you're like, "Okay, but it's not really how things work." And then they learn once they deploy.
So we're a multi-IMSI SIM, right? So there's multiple profiles that reside within one profile on the SIM. And what this allows customers to do is basically find the right network. But that does take time. So I think one of the things, major question that we're doing when we're speaking to customer is it a battery powered device, or is it a device that's on all the time? If it's a battery powered device, we always set the expectation, because there's a certain amount of time, especially when it's doing a deployment, that it needs to stay on for a few minutes to find its way, basically. At least the first time. If it's a stationary deployment, and we have customers that are locker systems, things like that, where they deploy these products, and these locker systems reside in businesses. They do the deployment, and it needs a certain amount of time to find the right network that it stays on. It gets onto. So with battery powered devices, I think is the biggest thing, where with those companies, we tend to work with them a bit more in setting up the IMSI profiles. uh, in order for them to have a better experience. Because when the device is moving from location A to location B, it's a battery powered device. You want to make sure that you have the right setup on that SIM card so that they're going to have the best.
One of the last things I wanted to ask you before I let you go here is for IoT leaders looking to kind of future proof their connectivity strategy over the next few years. I know a lot changes, it changes quickly, but what would that one piece of advice you have for those people and those leaders at companies looking to future proof their connectivity over the nearest future at least?
IMSI and multi-IMSI setups are great. They're being offered all over the place, but make sure that these offerings have the ability to have localized packet gateway infrastructure, which is extremely important for deployments because from a security standpoint in regions, especially how the global economic system is right now, right? Everyone wants their data to stay within region. So make sure that when you're doing this, that you have that ability to stay within the regions that you want to stay in and have the ability to grow, right? We have over, I want to say it's over 25 direct carrier integrations, right? And we're constantly adding them. We have access to localized MZs in Brazil. We have Turkey, Australia, all these roaming areas where you can't roam into, right? Or can't permanently roam into at least, we have access to. And make sure that you have that ability and the partner that you're working with has the ability to enter these areas long term.
For audience who wants to learn more about what you have going on, follow up, check in, touch base, stay up to date and kind of everything happening at Velocity. What's the best way to do that?
Our info box filled up on a regular basis. There's also, you can email me as well, Anthony at Velocity IoT .io or .com. You can reach out. We have lots of direct links on the webpage. You can go and get a SIM from DigiKey, test it out. Proof is in the pudding. You'll see how the technology works. It's always best to test it. If you have any questions, we're here to support.
Well, Anthony, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Great insight to share here. So I'm excited to get this out to our audience and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. It's been great.